have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your biggest educational ick?
My biggest educational ick. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Okay, I already thought of my answer, so I can go first.
Okay.
And this can be whether it's like supplemental education, the school board, something from your experience.
Okay.
Mine are 3 words.
Okay.
Wait and see.
Wait and see.
I hate wait and see.
Okay.
I hate nothing more than when a student has, whether it's symptoms of a learning disability, whether there's something going on, it's early reading intervention is needed, and the school says, well, let's wait and see what happens.
Okay.
So instead of getting support, they're advising parents to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
Parents wait and see. As we know, waiting and seeing does not work. There's nothing wrong with early intervention. The worst that's going to happen is everything works itself out, but you've gotten involved in the meantime and you have started to introduce supports and interventions.
Yeah.
So wait and see, my biggest ick.
Kicking that can down the road. Mm-hmm. Okay, biggest ick. Oh, you put me on the spot here. I honestly, do you know what I thought? You really put me in a bind here, because I actually do think that's a great answer, and I want to expand on your answer
Okay, that works. We can share the
because
ick.
it makes it sound like the support teams in school or any organization really is apathetic.
True, and
But that's not
case.
necessarily the case.
True.
I think it's more an issue that, that there's a maximum capacity
Yes.
and they've crossed that threshold years ago, and there's a lack of staff, there's a lack of resources, and when you're dealing with 30, 35 kids in a classroom, a lot of it becomes an issue of managing the ecosystem rather than being able to address specific challenges that a student or a family are having.
Yeah.
So I'm empathetic
Yes.
to the challenge.
Yes. So would you say then your educational ick is not enough resources and funding to the schools
Yeah.
in order to support the amazing support people?
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the problem. One of the problems with education in Ontario is there's just so many stakeholders involved, right? You have the government in power, you have the government in waiting, you have the taxpayer, you have the teachers union, you have the Ministry of Education, you have parents, you have taxpayers, like everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has a stake in getting this recipe right. But there's, they're always tampering and changing and moving things around and shuffling the decks on the cruise ship chair, or the chairs on the deck, whatever the expression is. You know what I mean? Shuffling deck chair. What am I trying to say?
Oh, I'm not sure. I've never heard this thing. Shuffling a deck, I think of a deck of
No.
cards.
Okay, I got it. Shuffling chairs on the Titanic. That's what I meant to say.
There we go.
Right. That no matter, Ontario is such a big and diverse place with so many constituencies that they're never going to get the recipe right 100% right 100% of the time.
You're never going to please everybody.
You're never going to please everybody. You're not going to be able to have the capacity to deliver exceptional education across the province at all times with 100% compliance.
Correct.
Because there's just limited resources.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I think the thing that gives me the ick is no matter how you get that recipe together, there are going to be kids that fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
Right? And it's not malicious. It's not like everybody wants the same thing. They want kids to succeed. They want kids to thrive. We're all invested because, preparing children to enter into the workforce is, part of my retirement strategy. But it's tough,
Yeah.
right? And there's limited resources, limited time. Geography is a factor. There's different cultural factors to put in place. There's different political factors. And the goal should be to try and minimize those gaps that kids fall through. But it's not going to get eliminated.
No.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is the perfect segue for today, because this is Hall Pass, and we are here today to talk about IEPs.
IEPs, what's an IEP?
IEP, Individualized Education Plan. And so this is how we can help some of those kids and prevent them from falling through the cracks.
Yeah, it's a tool that's in the Ministry of Education's toolkit to help make sure that some intervention is, that there's some intervention to make sure that kids are receiving additional support, but it's not a perfect tool.
It is not a perfect tool. And one thing that I find is that parents get really overwhelmed when they're told either your child needs an IEP or they think their kid needs an IEP, the school's saying maybe not, and there's all this verbiage and all these acronyms, and so it's just a very overwhelming thing. So we're here to demystify it a little bit, talk about the process of it, and maybe some of the history of it from an educational point of view. I've seen sort of some ups and downs. Yeah, so.
Well, let's start there.
Yeah.
The history of the IEP. So because when you and I were kids, if a student was struggling,
Yep.
the solution was to hold them back a grade.
Yep.
That's not the strategy anymore.
No. And there are people who strongly believe that it still should be. I'm not sure how I feel on that whole, that's a whole other topic for a whole other day, I think. But that's what happened. And they would go to a resource room or get held back. And there was not this inclusion in like typical classrooms where, every kid is trying to access the curriculum with what they need.
So instead of having, because they have the classroom current, right? And if the kid is not keeping up, they partition the kid and wait for them to be at the milestones expected and then have them move up at that point. The impacts of that. So the reasoning why we shifted away from that as a process is the impacts on a child's self-esteem.
Yes, social emotional impacts are huge. Absolutely.
So what was the solution that we shifted to?
So the creation of these IEPs.
Yes.
And I think at the time, when IEPs first came around, and even when I finished Teachers College, which was almost 20 years ago now, people didn't want their kids on an IEP. People thought that there was a stigma attached. It was very like, oh, there's something wrong with my kid if they're on an IEP. And so there weren't that many, like there were lots of them, but there weren't as many as there kind of grew to be, because people were doing everything they could to avoid them.
Yeah.
And schools were saying, but it's going to be helpful. And we took some time to convince parents that these are a tool and that slapping a label on a student and their needs is not a bad thing. Yeah. Then after that, I think lots of kids got IEPs, and we started to see a lot of IEPs for reasons that maybe we didn't need IEPs for.
Yeah.
And so we can talk now, I think might be a good time to talk about the difference between accommodations and modifications on IEPs.
Yeah.
What's the difference between accommodations and modifications?
I want to back up a little bit too.
Yes,
like
go
part
for
of
it.
the reason why we use this IEP is the fact that in order to have the student have access to these resources and accommodations, there needs to be a legal justification for it. So the IEP itself is actually a legal document that it essentially unlocks some options that otherwise are not available in the classroom.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and
So
this is why it's a good thing to be able to get one for students who need them.
Yeah, and this is the reason why you start to see this proliferation as well, is because there's a legal aspect to it, right? So the school board wants to make sure that it's crossing its T's, dotting its I's, and is not jeopardizing funding, because they are accountable to
Absolutely.
the bean counters at the province of Ontario. But essentially, you have two different camps. So you have classroom accommodations, which will allow the student to have access to some unique options in the classroom, like access to noise canceling headphones or preferential seating in a classroom, or extra time in a test, or maybe using a resource room, things like that, access to an LST. And then there is academic or programming accommodations where they would modify the curriculum. So you might have, let's say, a student in grade 6 who is struggling with numeracy and essentially is doing grade 3 level math expectations.
And so their report card would reflect grade 3 expectations, so they might be getting, a B or a C at the grade 3 level, even though they're in grade 6.
Yep.
One thing that we've seen is with these modifications that they're very few and far between on IEPs now.
Yeah, the trend is to move away from
Yes.
the academic modifications.
Yeah, and that's because the goal of the IEP, of the accommodations, is to allow every student to access grade level curriculum. So how many students, do we know, and this might be someone's kid out there, where, they've practiced and studied for a science test on the water cycle, and they can tell you all about it. But that kid can't read. And so you put a test in front of them and they can't read, and so, or, they can't write down their answer, and so they're gonna fail their test because they can't they can't access that test material in the same way as somebody who can read or can write. And so they're getting an F or, an R and failing this assignment or this test. But if the teacher said, hey, can you tell me about the water cycle? This kid is gonna probably have so much to say. They could draw a picture, they could explain it, and hey, they know that information. So actually, maybe they get an A.
Yeah.
And so the whole point of these accommodations is that they're accessing and sharing their knowledge in a variety of ways that suit them and allow them to show what's going on, so to show what they know. So
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There is also a classroom ecosystem aspect to this as well. So if a kid is struggling with, let's say, writing or printing or getting their thoughts out on paper, having them have access to talks-to-text is a solution, or having them have access to calculators for certain math assignments that might not necessarily need a calculator for that grade level expectation. And all that's well intended, right? The downside to it is oftentimes they're putting a Band-Aid over top of a bigger problem. So if the student is struggling with numeracy concepts, well, they might get pretty good at entering information into a calculator. But if they make a computation error with the calculator, their numeracy sense might not be strong enough to realize, oh, this answer that I've arrived at doesn't make any sense, and they just rely on that tool. If they're using talk to text, they're practicing getting their thoughts out, which is excellent, but they're not developing their penmanship or writing skills or summary skills, those sort of things. And it's helping make the ecosystem of the classroom a little bit easier to manage, but it's not really addressing the students.
the issues, the root.
You're not practicing the hard part, you're practicing the easy part.
Yeah, and I think that's why, an IEP is something that parents need to be really actively involved in the planning process. And students, once they're at an appropriate age, once they're 16, they get a say in that. And even, sooner than that, they are welcome to be at those meetings and have a say. And so, I mean, you're not going to want to take your 5-year-old into an IEP meeting, but, your very mature 12-year-old, kids are a great source for what they need, and we want them to learn to advocate for themselves. So one thing is, I guess within the first 30 days of school, as a parent, if your child already has an IEP, you should see it come home, and you need to sign off on it for the year. And I was telling you earlier, Bri, I had 2 friends who have, students or kids who are, they have diagnosis, they have an IEP, and have both come through my center one time or another over the years. And when I said, okay, well, what's on their IEP, they had no idea. And they said, I don't know, I didn't even return it. Or, I don't know, I signed it and sent it back.
Or it's all confusing. It's
so,
all in like...
What's an IEP? What's an IPRC? What's an accommodation? What's a modification? And so they get overwhelmed and they just sign off or they just ignore it.
Yeah, or they, the school has my kid's best interests.
Yes, they've got it under control. And you know what? The schools absolutely have every kid's best. I truly believe that schools have every kid's best interest at heart. Those learning support teachers who are writing the IEPs have...
Sorry, I want to make it... what I meant by that, the school has the best interest.
Yes.
What I mean by that is I just implicitly trust the
Yes,
school so
yes.
that I don't need to be an active player.
Absolutely.
That's what I
because
meant by
they've got it under control. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so these LSTs, they have, 100 sometimes of kids or 100 kids. They've got these kids on their roster. And so if all seems tickety-boo, the grades are okay, the accommodations are okay, then they're going to think everything's working. But maybe things aren't working. Maybe your kid's coming home crying. Maybe they're failing. Maybe they're saying it's too loud in my classroom. And if we don't tell them, they don't always know.
Yeah.
And so as a parent, when that document comes home, read over it, talk to your kid about it if they're at that age and maturity level. And if you have questions, don't just sign it and return it. You don't have to sign it if you don't like what it says. You get to have feedback in that. You get to be involved in the process. So don't sign it. Contact the learning support teacher, the classroom teacher, and say, hey, can we talk about these? If you are in a situation where your kid is getting some supplemental education, at least at our centers, we are happy to review IEPs, to talk to learning support teachers, to go into schools and be a parent advocate at those meetings and help break it all down. So, if your child already has an IEP, I think that's my biggest takeaway is, get involved, and if it's overwhelming, then ask for that support, whether it's from the school or from somebody else. Yeah.
What about the process to have a kid be put on an IEP? So I have a
Yes.
kid, let's say, and there's school's a struggle. It's impacting their self-esteem. They're feeling like they're drowning. How does the school identify if a student needs extra assistance, or is this something that a parent needs to advocate for?
Little of column A and a little of column B.
Little column B.
Yeah.
Okay, so when does these identifications happen?
So typically, there will be early identification in the primary grades.
Yep.
So you might get a note home saying your child seems to be struggling, whether it's social emotional regulation, whether it's early literacy, early numeracy, speech is another one, so they might want to get an SLP or an occupational therapist, OT involved. So you'll get notification, usually via a letter from the school about that.
Yeah, usually around grade 1 or grade 2.
Grade 1 or grade 2.
Okay.
And then, as a parent, you're probably at this point already thinking, something's off. The classroom teacher might have talked to you, say about your kid's focus or, anything. So the next step would be getting a diagnosis if there is something to be diagnosed.
And the school does the diagnosis when?
Well, so we don't typically diagnose kids before grade 3. This is because when they're young, a lot of things they can grow out of. With my own son, I often think to myself, is it ADHD or is he just a 5-year-old boy? And I really am not sure. And I've been relying on the school for communication about that, but he's in kindergarten, and so we're not worrying about it yet.
Yeah.
But grade 3 is typically when the school would do testing. And in general,
Okay.
kids used to get tested like crazy in grade 3. Then COVID happened, and we got really backed up.
Okay, so like halfway through grade 3 backed up?
Like probably grade 6,
Ooh,
grade
boy.
5, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
What's happening is there's this big bottleneck, and so the goal is to always have these tests done before kids go to high school. And so now it just becomes the tyranny of the urgent. Who needs the test the most is who gets it.
Or if
by age.
if you happen to have the means,
Yes.
paying out of pocket for this testing,
That's it.
the school will recognize private
Yes.
private assessments done.
Yeah. So, and I would always recommend checking with the school first. We have had a few occasions where a parent has sought out private testing and the school has not accepted it.
Yeah, there's some criteria.
So there are some criteria as far as, I think, credentials and the type of testing. It needs to be psychoeducational testing. There needs to be a diagnosis, things like that. I mean, to get the IEP. But yeah, so, you know, this testing is between $2,000 and $5,000.
Yeah.
Some people have benefits that cover it, some people don't. And so the diagnosis is taking a lot longer for a lot of people.
So there's a bottlenecking happening.
Absolutely, there is.
And I think, you know, it's recognized, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
everyone in the public education system realizes that, you know, there's been sort of this bottlenecking, this crisis. So there have been some changes to the IEP, moving away from some individual elements to what they call universal accommodations.
Yes.
What are universal accommodations?
Universal accommodations are things that every person should have access to in order to access the curriculum. And so you mentioned noise canceling headphones. Why do I have to have a diagnosis to want to drown out some noise around me to focus? So things like that, preferential seating, you know, if you hear better sitting at the front of the class, having some extra time to write a test. There's a lot of universal accommodations that are very helpful for everybody, not just kids who do have a diagnosis.
And this will be a way to sort of minimize the backlog of the IEP as well.
Exactly.
Right? So that you don't have to wait till your kid's 2/3 of the way through elementary school to have access to additional time writing a test.
Exactly. And this is partially why wait and see is one of my icks, because we can say in grade 2, let's wait and see, we'll test them once they hit grade 3. And that used to be okay because they were still in primary school and prepped, and, you know, there were still some fundamental skills that ideally we would have been teaching them sooner. But now when we wait and see, we're waiting and seeing for a few years. And so a lot can happen or not happen in that time. So if at any point you do pursue this private testing, you get a diagnosis for your child, then you can request a meeting. So it's called an IPRC meeting is what you would see. IPRC, Identification, Placement, and Review Committee meeting. So essentially you are requesting this of the school, and they have to contact you within a couple of weeks, I think it's 15 days, to say, okay, we're going to set up a meeting. You're going to have a meeting, you're going to have the learning support teacher, the classroom teacher, typically a principal or a vice principal would sit in for it, the parents, the student if they're over 16, and you're going to talk about this and you're going to say, here's, you know, the diagnosis, what are we going to do about this? Then the IEP gets drafted based on that, and this is when, as a parent, you can say yay or nay. It is a legal document. You are signing a legal document, so everything looks good. We sign off, it's in place, and then you'll review it next year. You don't like it, you meet again, and you can also call one of these meetings at any time. It does not need to be a once-a-year thing. If it's, you've said all this stuff in September and something has drastically changed in February, request to meet and take a look at it. So.
Goals for the IEP.
Yes.
Yes. So it should not be a set and forget document.
No.
Right. So there might be academic accommodations, less so now. There might be classroom accommodations. But the goal should be, as the kid no longer needs certain resources, as they're getting caught up, as they have more strategies or tools, or the academic gap closes, elements of the IEP can be and should be scaled back.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So that could be something that could be changed at any point. Typically, there's an annual review. Let's say I have a kid that's moving into high school. What happens in that case? So from elementary to high school, does the IEP carry over?
Yes, it does. And you want to make sure that it is in place and ready to go. The high school LSTs are also amazing at ensuring these accommodations are there. And I actually find that high school teachers do a pretty darn good job of following the IEP accommodations that are laid out. And so making sure that even as a parent, you are still involved right through, because once you are done high school, an IEP can also go with you to post-secondary education. So this is really helpful. Like noise canceling headphones, by the time you hit university or college, if you need noise canceling headphones, you're going to pop your loops
everyone
in and call it a day.
Everyone has iPods at that point,
exactly.
right?
But it can be things like, for a student, say, that has auditory processing issues, it could be having your notes in front of you. So you've got sort of a closed format where you're filling in the blanks, or you're getting a copy of notes. And I'm not sure things may have changed very much since I was in university. It was a very long time ago. But one of the first things that every professor said was, do not record your lectures. We were not allowed to audio record them. And so, it could be a case that a student is allowed to audio record a lecture. So making sure that it is a working document and not just set and forget, like you said, is so crucial. Yeah.
If I happen to find out, say I'm a parent and I happen to find out that elements of the IEP aren't being enacted in the classroom, which does happen.
Absolutely.
What avenue should I be pursuing in that case?
I think in general, you're always going to start with contacting the classroom teacher. Hey, did you know that this was on the IEP? Can you explain to me what's going on? Give them a chance. Maybe they just missed it. We're all humans. Things happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kids in a classroom, 35
and
kids.
20 of them might be on an IEP, depending on, the situation.
It can be tough.
It absolutely can. So always start with the classroom teacher and give them the opportunity to work on this with you. In the instance where that's still not happening, then you're going to want to contact your student's learning support teacher. If they have an IEP, you should know who that is. Their name will be on the IEP. And so your next step is contacting that learning support teacher. They'll work with the classroom teacher to make sure that they have the tools they need to offer this support. Should that not happen, then we're going to go to administration in the school. We'll go to the vice principal, the principal, and go up should you need to.
In the case of our clients, part of the service that we offer is support and being an advocate for a child's programming in school. We sit in on a lot of these meetings as well.
Absolutely.
So as a parent, you don't necessarily feel like you're just being overwhelmed with being pushed into some sort of decision.
Yes. And especially, and I think, I'm thinking even here, just, at my location, there's a very big ESL population. And a lot of our parents are new to Canada. And number one, may not understand what the process is and may not understand what's happening in a meeting. So anytime that we can help advocate, get a translator, anything like that, we're absolutely going to do that. And I think people knowing what their rights are, this is a legal document you're going to sign. So make sure that you can understand what it says before going into it. And so overall, I think IEPs are amazing when they're followed and when they're necessary and kept up to date.
It's a flawed system, but the idea is to have the child move up with their cohort.
Yes, instead of being held back. Yeah.
While also addressing some classroom or environmental needs or academic needs so that they're able to thrive the best they can.
Yep. And I think biggest takeaways would be, as a parent, making sure that you are involved in the process. Don't just sign off every year, read it over. If you're overwhelmed, seek out support, whether it's from, a center like ours or whether it's from the learning support teacher, the classroom teacher, a friend who's a teacher or an educational assistant. Those educational assistants, they know those things inside and out, and they are just these fonts of knowledge. Most people have, a friend in education one way or another. So seek out that support. Know that if your kid does have a diagnosis, a label, an IEP, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we want. We want that support to be there. And so stay involved in that process. And I would say another big one is just making sure that the kids know what their accommodations should be.
Yeah, it's not an stigmatism.
No, right?
I think I just said a stigmatism. It's
not stigma.
Stigma.
I knew what you meant. Yeah. You're not going to get an IEP.
It's early today.
Yeah, it is early today. And it's if a student is supposed to get extra time for a test and they're not getting extra time for a test, we want to empower them to advocate for themselves and say, hey, I'm supposed to get extra time. And it's really hard for kids to do that, even in high school. In elementary school, when they're younger, they'll shout it from the rooftops, and then they sort of will get shy and not. And so really letting kids know that it's okay to tell people what you need and say, hey, I have an IEP that allows me this, you know, that I would say is the very first place to start, is having them say to their teacher, hey, why am I not getting my thing? Did you remember this? And trying to work that out too. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that knowledge.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't all, you know, incorrect. It's been a long time. No, I did some research.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and if people do have questions, then, you know, make sure, I'm going to shout it out, like, subscribe, all of those things, but also in the comments, ask questions. If you have them, we will do our very best to answer them. And if we don't have the answer, we will get the answer. So, yeah. All right. Are we going to share our fun student stories?
Yeah.
Yes. Do you have one in mind?
I do.
All right, let's hear it.
I've been thinking about this. So we have a wonderful student, Scarlett.
Okay.
And she's been attending with us for, I want to say about a year, maybe or so. And she has always kind of struggled with math and numeracy. But when we did our initial assessment, the reason why that struggle is happening wasn't necessarily a math-based issue. It was primarily a language and comprehension issue, right? A couple grade levels behind with reading comprehension. And she worked really hard, right? And she is just an absolute gem of a person. Always enthusiastic, always a big smile on her face, and has worked really hard, got caught up with her reading levels. And we've been working on some math concepts, and it was incredible how much she's been saying lately that, you know, all this is starting to click, this stuff is starting to seem easy, it makes sense now. You know, we still have some things that we need to work on, but just seeing Scarlett sort of like have all this sort of fall into place, and the confidence, so it's not just like, oh, I get it now, it's like I truly understand it now. It's been really inspiring to see. So
I love that.
Good job, Miss Scarlett.
Nice job, Scarlett. That's amazing. Those are my favorite stories. All right, I have been thinking about this, and Jasper.
Tell me about Jasper.
Jasper is my student. Jasper is in, I want to say he's in grade 7, and his mom called me this summer in a bit of a panic because Jasper has an IEP, and on his IEP is speech to text.
Okay.
And he's an incredibly clever student. He can read something and tell you lots of information about it. He is in a French school. He is fully bilingual. Really, really bright kid. And this summer, his dad said, hey, can you write this down for me?
Okay.
And he needed him to write down whether, I don't think it was something for like a list of a tool they needed. And Jasper could not do that. He could not spell, he could not write, and he's been using this technology and this support for so long that he could not write. And so, I mean, he can write, but he could not get it from his head onto the paper. And his assessment showed that he's a very smart kid. And so he's been with us since the summertime, and you know, it's a painful experience for him to write. And so it started off, you know, we start off with, you know, I do, we do, you do. And so it started off with, he would explain what he wanted us or what he wanted to write. We would jot it down, and then he would write it. And I said to him, Jasper, is this really any different than you talking to a computer? Because I'm just being your computer. And he said, you're right. And so I said, that's not happening anymore. And so, you know, he went, and now he's writing it out.
Okay.
But as you know, and I'm sure you have seen students like this who want to know that every word that they are writing down is spelled correctly. And so, how do I spell this? And he would get frozen, completely paralyzed. It would take him, if I let him, an hour to write a sentence because it had to be perfect. And so we have been working on this. And I said, it's okay if it's spelled wrong. We celebrate mistakes. And I said, what is the worst thing that's going to happen if you spell this wrong? Well, it's not going to be right.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll fix it.
Yeah. You don't need to get it perfect right away.
You don't need to get it perfect right away. And we have talked about how stressing about every word is going to impact your flow of ideas and getting them out. Like, just get it out and fix it later. And so we have been working on this and working on this and working on this. And the other day, it was right near the end of class, and he wrote out a sentence, and we just had this big conversation, and it was time to go. And so I didn't even have time to really look at it. And We talked about what we had learned, and off he went. And I looked down at this page, and I picked it up, and I ran into my education director's office, and I said, I have never been so thrilled to see such a horribly spelled sentence in my life. I took a picture of it, and I was so thrilled because he had spelled in this 6-word sentence, I think 4 words wrong.
Okay.
And I was so excited.
But he
Because
did
he
it
just
himself.
wrote the sentence.
Yes.
He did not ask me how to spell anything. He just wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was over the moon excited. I emailed his mom. She got back to me and said, he came to the car with such a huge smile on his face. He was so proud of himself. The next time he came in, you know, I celebrated this with him. And he said, you know, it's so much faster to write when you're not stressing about it being perfect. And that was that breakthrough, that light bulb aha moment. And so it was just so much has been unlocked for this kid now.
Love this story.
And you know, I'm like, trust yourself, because you actually can spell better than you think you can. And 9 times out of 10, he gets the things spelled properly, or he's really close. And so the fact that he was able to break through that fear, take the risk, make the mistake, and learn something from it, and have that takeaway of, oh, this is so much easier. It's easier to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Was just like, I literally still have the picture of the sentence in my phone because I loved it so much. And I was like, this is it.
Maybe you could
So,
post that on the Instagram.
I mean, I think I should.
Yeah.
Yes, I will actually, because it's amazing. So Jasper, we have talked about this many times, but I am so proud I want to cry. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's the Instagram handle, by the way?
For Hall Pass,
Yeah.
is at the Hall Pass Pod.
Hall Pass Pod.
Hall Pass Pod.
Yeah, so if you want to see
Yes.
that photo of that
Yes.
sentence,
Get on there.
get on there.
Like it. We'll post little previews. And yes, like, subscribe, follow us, give us a review. All the wonderful things. But only if it's a good review.
Bye, friends.
Bye, everyone.